Active addiction often relies on a fragile sense of security, the assumption that even at the edge of an overdose, a friend with a nasal spray can pull you back. That routine of hustling to get well is underpinned by the belief that the rescue medicine always works. But between 2024 and 2026, the illicit drug market underwent a structural transition. This shift moved production away from traditional chemical precursors and toward a new landscape of high-velocity synthetic creation. Modern synthetic drugs are increasingly engineered to bypass the biological vulnerabilities that standard medical interventions are designed to target. The chemical formulas currently entering the supply chain represent a departure from the substances that responders were trained to treat just 2 years ago. This evolution suggests that the current street-level response is facing a supply specifically formulated to resist the standard tools of recovery. When international generic bans in 2025 disrupted the supply of previous synthetics like nitazenes, illicit labs pivoted to unregulated opioid subclasses to maintain their revenue streams. They began synthesizing compounds once abandoned by pharmaceutical researchers due to extreme toxicity. This is a collection of forensic evidence showing the rapid diversification of the synthetic supply. One of the most potent results of the substitution is cychlorphine, an unregulated opioid that laboratory analysis identifies as 10 times more potent than illicit fentanyl. This model illustrates how cychlorphine binds to the human opioid receptors. It possesses an extreme binding affinity, anchoring itself to the nervous system with physical force that triggers immediate respiratory failure. Standard doses of naloxone work by physically displacing opioids from these receptors. However, because cychlorphine remains bound for extended durations with such high intensity, the antidote fails to generate the mechanical leverage required to break the connection. Regulatory bans did not stop the synthesis of these drugs. They simply forced the market to produce a compound that current rescue protocols struggle to physically dislodge. This is a bottle of Medetomidine, an industrial veterinary tranquilizer that is rapidly displacing Xylazine as a primary street adulterant. It is estimated to be 100 to 200 times more potent than its predecessor. Medetomidine is an alpha-2 adrenergic agonist, meaning it bypasses the opioid receptors. While an opioid suppresses breathing, this compound strikes a secondary pathway to induce profound sedation, dangerously slow the heart rate, and crash blood pressure. This creates a scenario where the naloxone successfully reverses the respiratory depression, but the victim remains in a deep, unresponsive coma. Because medetomidine is not an opioid, the standard antidote has zero pharmacological effect on the sedation it induces. Survivors often face a secondary crisis, a withdrawal syndrome involving severe agitation and chest pain that standard detox programs are not equipped to handle. These cases frequently require intensive care and specialized drips just to manage the cardiovascular shock. By pairing an ultra-potent opioid with an untouchable sedative, the illicit supply has moved toward a chemical profile that street-level rescue and clinical detox were never designed to counteract. To understand why these lethal combinations are prioritized, we must look past the biological damage and examine the industrial-scale organizations that benefit from this volatility. Within this global framework, the individual user functions as a source of liquidity for a multi-billion-dollar criminal enterprise. The dependency is a resource to be harvested at an industrial scale. In Southeast Asia's Golden Triangle, ethnic militias utilize contested territories to provide the infrastructure for massive clandestine labs. These facilities operate with the power grids and logistics necessary to produce synthetic drugs by the ton. The profits from these synthetics are now being funneled into a dark convergence, the construction of massive cyber fraud centers. These facilities rely on human trafficking to execute digital scams that generate billions in additional illicit revenue. The suffering experienced at the street level is the seed capital for an international conglomerate that integrates narcotics, human trafficking, and industrial cyber fraud into a single business model. The global drug supply is currently a weaponized financial engine. The profit margins are so vast that syndicates no longer need to prioritize the long-term survival of their customers to remain profitable. To the money laundering networks processing these billions in cryptocurrency, an individual life is statistically invisible. The machine is designed to extract value, not to sustain life. This reality directly contradicts the sense of security many users carry. The safety net of Narcan and local outreach was built for a different chemical era. The combination of agonists like cychlorphine and sedatives like medetomidine has moved the lethal threshold beyond the limits of current emergency medicine. The substances have been re-engineered to a point where the human body can no longer reliably be resuscitated. The previous safeguards have been systematically bypassed by the chemistry of the supply itself. Seeking professional clinical help is the only way to exit a system that is no longer built for the user's survival.